In this video I'm going to show you how I Grandmastered Lunar Minor Facility 1v1 Capital Conquest games playing with these settings. So in the first game my opponent immediately disconnected in the territory selection phase, and with a computer player taking over him it couldn't have been easier for me to win. And it was quite surprising to find out that I beat an expert, as usually only low-ranked players would immediately quit. In the second game my opponent, going second, was generous enough to gift me an area which gives 4 extra troops. So that gave me a good boost, and then of course I invaded him into his captured area and one even decided to take over this capital, getting a very favorable blitz roll. To be honest, it probably wasn't a great idea to risk losing a lot of troops when having a guaranteed advantage, but at the end I succeeded, so who cares. My opponent recaptured his capital, but then besides my already captured area, he let me hold one more. So probably it's not that much surprising that at the end I easily won. That opponent was an intermediate rank player. In the third game my opponent failed to invade me into my taken area, and after doing a couple of more attacks, he rage quit the game. I beat another expert ranked player. I was about to win the fourth game, but then I've got the disconnection error which didn't let me come back to the game, so with my opponent probably quitting as well, this game wasn't counted. So in the actual fourth game my opponent has immediately quit the game. And another victory was completely gifted to me like in the first game. That opponent was an intermediate player. In the fifth game second round the pink player didn't end up invading 2 of my areas, which one of them was a big one, so that immediately let me get a huge advantage, and once 3 rounds were passed I immediately blitzed my opponent's capital, winning the game easily. My opponent was a master rank player. In the sixth game in my first turn I took over 3 different areas and my opponent decided to immediately blitz my capital, letting me hold all 3 of them. So in my turn I've got even 28 troops, and that led of not only easily recapturing my capital but taking over my opponent's capital as well. And then that's probably not a surprise that I ended up easily winning. And my opponent was a master ranked player once again. In the 7th round my opponent wasn't able to invade me even into 3 of my captured areas, which led me of getting 28 troops in my second turn again. And with me ending up holding more than half of the map with only 3 borders to guard, the pink player in his second turn rage quit the game. He was an intermediate rank player. In the 8th round my opponent, going first, only captured 3 territories of mine, and then added a lot of troops in the area he was going for, making them blocked and be pretty much useless. So in my turn I invaded him into his area from the border, which wouldn't unleash his biggest army and then capture some territories. Well, not so many either, which was a mistake for me. But keep in mind that this game was just one of my first matches on this map, and later on I improved my gameplay by a lot. To be honest, the biggest improvements only came at the end of the run. But I mean, that was my goal, to figure out a decent strategy from the scratch in a not very well-known map. So anyway, I ended up prevailing in this game and the green player just rage quit. I beat a beginner rank player. In the 9th game my opponent immediately left the game once it started, so another free victory was gifted for me. That player was a novice. In the 10th game my opponent was generous to let me capture a bunch of areas in the territory selection phase, so with me going first I received a ton of troops. So the game was immediately lost for him. He had no other choice but to blitz my capital and quickly rage quit. He was a beginner rank player. In the 11th game my opponent left in the territory selection stage once again, so another free victory was gifted my way. He was a novice ranked player. In the 12th game I was playing against another novice player who actually was playing way above the novice level. He was one of the most decent opponents so far. He even knew the 1-die manual rolling trick when it comes to dead-end territories, using 1 die to capture a dead-end territory, so instead of 3 troops you could leave only 1 on it. But these rolls just weren't in his favor. So this is where I've got some more hopes to make a comeback, as it really seemed that I was losing. And then after multiple turns, I ended up prevailing and he quit the game. And then at the end it was kinda surprising to find out that he was only a novice. But he has a lot of games played, meaning that he has some experience, and it could be possible that he has been losing a lot of games lately. Then in the 13th game I've got a beginner rank player who let me hold a lot of areas. So I won that game easily. In the 14th game I met a player who with me going first let me get a lot of areas. So I've got a ton of troops, and then with him not putting any additional troops on his capital, I took over it easily. And after my turn was ended I found out that he rage quit. I beat a novice rank player. In the 15th game in my first turn I captured 3 right side areas, and while the pink player managed to invade the bottom one and one in the middle, I still held the top smallest one. And in my second turn I not only recaptured these 2 invaded areas but grabbed 2 additional ones as well. And the pink player had nothing better to do but just to rage quit. He was a master rank player. In the 16th game second turn the pink player, by not adding quite enough troops to be guaranteed next to my area, ended up failing to invade it. So that let me take the advantage over him. And then since he wasn't really guarding his capital much, in the 4th round I traded in a set and blitzed his capital easily. He was a beginner rank player. In the 17th game I've got a decent opponent who in the first turn captured a lot of territories at the same time capturing 3 areas. I invaded all 3 of them, and the one which was next to me I even took it from myself. Then the white player recaptured both of the areas next to her capitals but surprisingly let me hold the area next to my capital which she had captured last turn. So that gave me some hopes to make a comeback. Then the white player in the 3rd turn overexpanded, and with her having barely any troops on her capital I immediately blitz it. As you know, if you're the 2nd player, then you can just blitz your opponent's capital in the 3rd round, as after your turn ends the 3 rounds rule will be gone and you will immediately win. I beat a master rank player. In the 18th game my opponent left the game in the territory selection phase. So a victory was just given to me. I beat an intermediate rank player. In the 19th game I captured 2 left side areas. The white player decided to immediately blitz my capital, and because of that I ended up holding one of the areas successfully, getting some extra troops. So getting 18 troops in total I recaptured my capital easily. But then despite having low odds the white player got lucky to invade both of my areas. Then in the 3rd turn I recaptured both of them and the white player rage quit. He was a master rank player. In the 20th game I've got a novice rank player who was playing like a decent 1v1 player. And then looking to his stats I saw that single player games took him less than 2 minutes per game to complete each. So judging by his gameplay and his stats, I think that's pretty clear that it was a Smurf account. And that Smurf aka Zero Online Wins Novice managed to outsmart me. Or maybe I outsmarted myself because maybe I played too defensively. I managed to end up in a situation when I have a lot of troops in my capital blocked. And my opponent clearly took the advantage and I had 0 chances to win this game. But despite having an unstoppable advantage he still thought that it would be a great idea to overexpand himself in a clearly winning position while forgetting about his capital's safety. So I of course had to take the advantage of it. I've got lucky to trade in a set at 3 cards which guaranteed me to break through his capital area's border, and with him only having 1 troop on it I took with no problems and won. Then in the 21st game I've got a low rank player who was letting me get areas in the territories picking stage, so in my first turn I've got even 24 troops and I wiped out the majority of the map. My opponent had no other choice but just to rage quit. I beat a beginner rank player. In the 22nd game I failed to invade my opponent into one of his areas. He received a lot of troops and took over my capital easily. And then there was no way that I would make a comeback. I lost to a beginner rank player. In the 23rd game I've got another Zero Online Games novice. Looking to his stats he'd managed to win all 3 single-player games he played in less than 11 minutes each. So his stats looked more believable. And then even though his gameplay wasn't as good as another zero experience in quotation marks novice, he was still far away from a completely clueless new to the game player. So I assume it could have been a Smurf account once again, so just not of that decent level player like another Zero Online Wins novice was. But anyway, I brought through his border and capturing his capital I won the game. In the 24th game my opponent captured area and in my turn I just brought through it crushing his army and then additionally captured an area for myself which was close to my capital. My opponent in his turn so randomly added all of his troops over here and just captured one single territory letting me successfully hold my area. So I think there's no surprising that I took over advantage and won the game easily. He was an intermediate rank player. In the 25th game my opponent in the territory selection phase let me get even 3 areas. And it immediately gave me an unstoppable advantage. The green player was still trying to do something but all of his efforts went in vain. I beat a beginner rank player. In the 26th game my opponent disconnected in the territory selection phase, so another victory was gifted for me. I beat an intermediate rank player. In the 27th game second round my opponent tried to manual roll my capital, and even though he successfully did it, he had no troops to protect them, so I just took over both of them. And my opponent rage quit the game. He was a Grandmaster rank player. The 28th game was with the same player again, so this time he was going first while I second. In the second round he tried manual rolling my capital once again, but this time unsuccessfully. So I took over the advantage and won the game. And then 29th game was with the same player from the previous game once again. In his first turn he captured an area, and despite me having an 85% success chance I failed to invade him into his area. Then in the second turn I tried invading him once again and with having a 72% success chance I failed again. So then the last chance for me to win by trying my luck of going for his capital. I had only 24% success chance, so because of having fewer than 50% chance I decided to switch to manual rolls. And at the end it was very close but I still failed. The blue player won that game. In the 30th game I took the advantage over my opponent quickly, and since I was going second, in the third round I decided to immediately blitz his capital having a 100% success chance. I beat an expert rank player. In the 31st game second round the white player failed to invade me even into 2 of my areas, so with me getting a huge advantage the game was mine. I beat an expert rank player. In the 32nd game the blue player from the previous games joined again. He captured 2 areas, and with me being afraid to get not successful blitz rolls again, I decided to try my luck on immediately blitzing the blue player's capital having a 94% blitz win chance and I succeeded getting a very good blitz roll. The blue player in his turn tried to retake one of the capitals using manual rolls but he wasn't really successful. And I was finally able to invade him into his top left area fully taking it from myself. The blue player in the third round tried to manual rolling the capital once again, but he wasn't successful for another time and I won the game. In the 33rd game my opponent going first immediately tried blitzing my capital with it being next to him but he got a very bad blitz roll and failed. So then I took over his capital myself and then took over 2 areas. The white player invaded one of them trying to regain 1 capital, but he failed the blitz roll. And taking over a huge advantage I won the game beating a master rank player. In the 34th game I and the pink player were recapturing each other territories back and forth and since with our capitals being next to each other, I wanted to take a good capital blitzing chance for myself, rather than give it away from my opponent, and with me very luckily having a set at 3 cards it was 100% blitzing chance. I beat a Grandmaster rank player. In the 35th game with me capturing a lot of territories and areas in the first round, the orange player rage quit in the second round. I beat an expert rank player. In the 36th game the blue player didn't invade me into one of my areas and that led me of getting a big advantage. I continued dominating the game, and despite going first, in the third round I decided to blitz the blue player capital. I did it successfully, but that cost me a lot of troops, so the blue player recaptured it. But then in my next turn I blitzed the capital once again and won the game. I beat an expert ranked player. In the 37th game I captured 4 different areas and the white player failed to invade one of them. She was left only with 3 troops on her capital, so I was able to immediately take over it. And then she just rage quit. I beat a Grandmaster ranked player. In the 38th game's second round I failed to invade the purple player into one of her areas. So she took over the advantage and won the game. I lost to a Master ranked player. In the 39th game I've got 0 online wins. Novice who was playing way above the novice level for sure, having a good idea of what he is doing. So I assumed that was very likely a Smurf account. We were recapturing each other territories back and forth, until the blue player decided to unleash his capital towards my capital's way, so then I've just decided to blitz his capital, seeing an opportunity rather than leaving a good opportunity to him. It was an 85% success chance, and fortunately I succeeded. Otherwise I would have ranked down by a lot if losing to a novice ranked player. In the 40th game I invaded the white player into her captured area, taking it over myself, and then captured 2 other areas around my capital. The white player managed to invade all 3 of them, but then I recaptured them once again. The white player realized that she won't be able to invade at least one of them, so then she rage quit. I beat a Master ranked player. In the 41st game, with me taking over a bunch of areas, the orange player failed to invade one of them. Then in my second turn I captured even more of them and the orange player just rage quit the game. I beat an expert ranked player. In the 42nd game, with me taking over a bunch of areas, the white player didn't invade one of them. Then in my second turn I captured even more of the areas and the white player just rage quit the game. I beat an expert ranked player, and finally the Grandmaster rank was reached in 42 online games.